This story today, as it broke this evening, also earned a response from a woman named MJ Hegar. She's the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate in Texas. This is what she had to say in response to Goldberg posting this reporting at The Atlantic tonight. She says, quote, "I'm one of the pilots that got shot down. Our commander-in-chief thinks that makes me a loser. He thinks the many friends I lost and soldiers I medevaced were suckers. This is disgraceful. Donald Trump is unfit to be commander-in-chief." MJ Hegar is somebody who has a national profile right now because she is running against incumbent Republican U.S. Senator John Cornyn in Texas. But as she mentioned, she has been in harder fights than that. As a helicopter pilot, she served 3 tours in Afghanistan. She flew combat search and rescue and medevac missions. Her chopper was shot down in Afghanistan, hit by Taliban fire. She was wounded. She received the Purple Heart for her injuries. She was also awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross with Valor for saving the lives of her crew and her patients when she was shot down. If this reporting tonight bears out, and there are now 2 reporters who say that it does with multiple sources, MJ Hegar is one of the Americans who the president is deriding as a sucker and a loser for risking her life for the country. I'm pleased to welcome to the show tonight Democratic Senate candidate in Texas, MJ Hegar. Ms. Hegar, thanks very much for joining us. I know you're joining us on short notice as well. I really appreciate it.
I thank you, Rachel. It's not easy to hear, to speak on TV after hearing these things, frankly. I'm having a very physical and visceral response to the reporting because as a medevac pilot, I medevaced so many wounded and dying and dead patriots that have served this country, both Republicans and Democrats, by the way. This isn't a political thing for me. This is about when our men and women in uniform put their lives on the line, when we put our lives on the line. We can only do so with a clear mind for the mission because we are trusting the people that have put us there. And so for me, this is not about politics. I would be calling out a Democrat who said the same things. I've never heard anyone, Democrat or Republican, say these types of things. But I think it's especially critical when we're talking about a commander-in-chief who has employing troops at his fingertips. It does put into context things like stories about Russian bounties and some of the foreign policy, decisions, gutting the State Department, which is the military front line of defense, robbing from the military budget to build a border wall. So it does put some of these things into context. But it sounds to me like a highly insecure person. Maybe it's because I have toddlers, and so I've grown to understand how to recognize a bully and to understand the deep level of insecurity that creates a bully. That's what this sounds like to me. It's somebody who is damn lucky that those of us who have put the uniform on to sacrifice for this country have done so, because that puts him in a position to have the freedom to make these types of statements. And the men and women in uniform will fight and die for his right to express his opinions. All we ask is that the people who send us into harm's way are doing so with a clear mind and a true heart, and are doing it as a last resort, and are doing it with the respect for the sacrifices that we make.
The profound disrespect specifically for the sacrifice is the thing that I can't get over here. And Jeffrey Goldberg is a very good reporter. He says that he has 4 sources who heard the president say, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It is filled with losers." 4 sources in a separate conversation on the same trip heard the president refer to the more than 1,800 Marines who lost their lives at Belleau Wood, refer to them as suckers for getting killed. And I know you say that this is not political, and you would say you would be equally critical of any Democrat or Republican who said things like this. I've just never heard a human being say things like this in any context. The idea that the specific act of like you, being wounded while serving your country, or God forbid, dying while serving your country, that makes you less. That makes you repulsive. That makes you unworthy of respect. This is completely foreign to any idea of human empathy, but also just the range of emotion I can understand. Have you ever heard anything like it before?
I feel like we should be asking a psychologist where this comes from, frankly. I think that it's projection. I think that he's been so rejected. We've seen him attacking transgender troops who are trying to serve our country and acting like they're not good enough. And I say that it has to come from a place where he knows he's not good enough. He would never make it as a pilot. He would never make it shot down behind enemy lines. He would I won't go into the details of the things that I think he would do under duress, but I will say that even though it isn't political, you mentioned something critical in your reporting, which is that, and Goldberg did in his reporting, that he's gotten away with it. He hasn't been held accountable. Who is there to hold him accountable? It's us, Rachel. This is on us. This is a call to action for every patriot across the country to answer the call, for God's sake, and do something about this. Not only to vote, but to bring 5 people with you to vote, to volunteer for campaigns, to make your voices heard. We in the military are trained not to make our politics heard because we have to serve multiple parties, commanders in chiefs. So it's pretty extraordinary for, generals to be speaking out. It's difficult for me to run for office and make my politics known because it's going against years of training to keep my mouth shut about such things. But the time is now to stand up for the next generation putting on the uniform. And if we don't send a resounding message that this is unacceptable, and we send that message at the polls, we're going to see that this is not going to be unique. Right now, I can't think of anyone else that's done this. But if he gets away with this, we're going to see more examples of this, I believe.
MJ Hegar, Democratic U.S. Senate candidate in Texas, 3 tours in Afghanistan as a combat search and rescue and medevac pilot. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your perspective on this tonight. It's absolutely flabbergasting, and I appreciate it when you say it's hard to find the words. You certainly did, but this is just remarkable stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for the attention to it.